Eliot, being one of the new critics, I would like to analyze his poem and the last part of his poem, to be very precise, in the same way, in the manner of new criticism, as I did in the last semester. The title, that is What the Thunder Said, is borrowed from Indian fertility legend. The legend says that the gods, the devils and the men, all of them listen to the thunder. The thunder instructs them or advises them to do something, and they do accordingly. So the title is borrowed from that legend. Now, first a few lines in his "He who was living is now dead" is a photographic representation of the burial or of the death ceremony of Christ. I would like to read: after the torchlight there on 30 pages, after the frosty silence in the garden, after the agony stone faces, the shouting and the crying, reason and palaces and reverberation of thunder, of stream over distant fountains, he who was living is now dead. He, that means the he here is Christ, and he who was living is now dead. We who are living, who were living, are now dying with a little patience. Now the words here are to be taken into consideration. A little, this word we will have to take into consideration. A little here means that we are dying very fast. It's one of the themes of the point that people who are living are dead. They have no, they have no urge to live. And this thing takes us back to the first part of the poem where he says that, when he says that I had not thought that death had undone so many. So that this line takes us to the first part. The reference is that. Now here is no water but only rock. Now the water here is a symbol of rejuvenation. It's a symbol of restoration of life to the human being. But the water is not there in the wasteland. Now the description will follow the same way. Rock and no water and this sandy road, a road winding above among the mountains. And which kind of mountains? I have omitted some of the lines because the point is too long in the last part. So the mountains, which kind of mountains? The mountains are dead mountains, mountains of careless sea that cannot sleep. Here one neither can stand nor lie or nor sleep. This line, this here no one can neither stand nor lie nor sleep, is shows the helplessness of T.S. Eliot, or that shows the hopelessness of him. He has no faith. He has lost utter faith in his culture, in his civilization, and he wants to say that I can't stand here. And he wishes that if there were water and no rock, if there were rock and also water, and there is a line where he says that if there is only a sound of water, then one can survive here, one can live here, but here there is no water. All the civilizations and cultures have brought up, have progressed near the riverside, but here it is not there. So that's the thing is in the making. Now he is jumping from one subject to another, one myth to another. So I have to do the same. He says that who is the third who walks always beside you? This third is the Christ, right? And this line shows the resurrection of Christ. So when I count, there are only you and I together. But when I look up ahead, the white road, see, now because of the Christ's presence there, the white road is given there, not a black road or that sort of thing. But when I look ahead and when I look ahead of the white road, there is always another one walking beside you, lying in brown mantle. Indeed, I do not know whether a man or woman, but who is that on the other side of you? Now he's questioning, who is that person? Wrapped up in the brown mantle. That person he doesn't know, and that person is Christ himself. I would directly like to come to this slide. These are the questions that he asked. What is that sound which high in the air? And then what is the city over the mountains, cracks and reforms and bursts in the violet haze? Falling towers, Jerusalem, Athens, Alexandria, Vienna, and very critically, London. Now this shows that all these places, all these civilizations, all these cultures have fallen down. They have, lost their value. But the reference to London is very critical. He's directly pointing to the situation or the wasteland of London, the modern society being degenerated. And he says all these things are, the answer is unreal. In this decayed hall among the mountains, in the faint moonlight, the darkness and with all things. And now the empty chapel, and that is the empty chapel, only the brick hole, it has no windows, and the door shrinks. This, the chapel is takes us back to the meaning of grill, Westford grill, and grave, sorry. This grave is, as we know that Christ had taken his last supper in that grave, and that that grave was to be found by the night. Now again the things go that now there are no people who can find this grave. Directly I would like to come to this 3 points that are the most important. The thunder is in a way Prajapati, and he is an Indian god. It shows that India has lost faith in his culture, and that's why he's borrowing from other cultures. They have borrowed everything from us, and this thing also. Dasta, that means give, that he's instructing to man that give whatever you have. Then Jaya comes to God, he's asking that, keep sympathy over man, over all the things. And to the devil, he says that Damyatam, that means control. These all things are, told to human beings where they are told that, keep in control the devil within you, and give give sympathy or give grace to the God or the good elements within you. And at last, he, concludes or he resigns with the note that Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. This note, and he has right in the note below that it's a piece that passes human understanding. We can't understand what this Shanti, Shanti, Shanti below means. This can only be realized by suffering, by celibacy, and all those things. Man has to suffer himself a lot to go under lots of pain, and after that only he will be able to rejoin himself with the ultimate reality that is true.